Now I'd like to invite another fantastic person. We're so lucky to have her supporting our event, Chlöe Swarbrick MP for Auckland Central, co-leader of the Green Party and chair of the cross-party Mental Health and Addictions Wellbeing Group. Chloe discovered her ADHD as an adult and is a shining light in our community. Please join me in welcoming Chloe to the stage.
Tēnā koe, tēnā koutou e te whare. Welcome, no mai haere mai. I just wanted to also acknowledge Mayor Tory Whanau. Tory, yes, a friend, but also my former boss as Chief of Staff. I just also wanted to acknowledge my co-host, who is, of course, the Deputy Chair of the Cross-Party Group on Mental Health and Addiction, Ingrid Leary. Ingrid, did you want to say something?
Oh, very quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't planning to speak, but tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you so much, Chloe, for that generous sharing of the time. I think it's really important for all of you to know that we do have neurodiversity here in this parliament. I'm also neurodiverse, also ADHD. Tory, I heard so much of myself in your kōrero, especially about always getting into trouble for things that seem really basic to other people, like being on time at the right place, and so on. That is a real struggle. If you're thinking about becoming a parliamentarian, please do. We need more diversity in this place, and it's so lovely to see you in here. Also, I'd invite you to recognise not only what makes your thinking different, because obviously the more inclusive we are, the less we have to have these silly labels, because everybody thinks differently at the end of the day. But think about your superpower as well, because we do bring superpowers. The hyper-focus for me, but also the ability to think across and think laterally is so natural to me, and people are like, oh, wow, how did you think of that? So don't just focus on the things that are challenging. Find your superpower, use it, and if this place feels comfortable for you, please come back here soon or in a few years and help us change the laws, because I know there's a focus on education. My passion is not just being able to respond in schools. Our prisons are full of neurodiverse people, and they're full of people who cannot get diagnoses. And it's up to this group of people here, you're all leaders, for us to make the change so that people can contribute rather than being locked up for the way they think. Thank you.
It was worth it. It was worth it for the off-the-top speech. Just to continue on the whakaaro from Mayor Whanau, I should also point out that I was once almost kicked out of my science class for arguing with my science teacher about the fact that everything that she was teaching us was falsifiable, which is not an argument that she wanted to have with a 15-year-old. But shout out to the weirdos, is I think the kind of undercurrent here, right? I just wanted to mahi to the Young Neurodiversity Champions. You guys have done amazing mahi in pulling this together, despite the fact that our names are the ones hosting this. I also wanted to shout out to all of our parliamentary staff, particularly to Laura from my office, who's done a huge work to help pull this together and wrangle all of the members of parliament who are here on a non-sitting week. And also, I just wanted to give you a bit of an insight into what the Cross-Party Group on Mental Health and Addiction Wellbeing is. So this was formed about 6 years ago now, and was one of the recommendations of the Hiara Oranga, the inquiry into mental health and addiction, about 6 or so years ago now. And basically what that found is reflective of a lot of contemporary research, but was obviously localised to here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. All of us have these brains, right? But those brains can be turned kind of up or down a notch based on the environment that we're in, whether they are enabling or what are considered disabling factors. And this is where I think that it's really important for us to reflect on the fact that mental health, like physical health, is informed by the world that we live in. And of course, we're touching on one particular thread in the form of education today. And this is where I think it's really important for us not to silo these solutions out, but to realise at the most acute end, suicide prevention isn't just about more resources going into crisis management in mental health and addiction. It is livable incomes. Suicide prevention is affordable housing. Suicide prevention is all of us feeling as though we belong and are able to be ourselves in our communities. Suicide prevention is a climate-safe future. Suicide prevention is all of us understanding who we are and having a sense of control and agency over our future. Now, as many have just alluded to, a few years ago, after quite a while on antidepressants, thinking that I was just very, very depressed, I went off of them because I felt like a lot of stuff wasn't really working out in my life. And I went and sat down with a therapist, my psychologist, and was like, I think I'm a psychopath. I don't think that I understand the world or people's emotions like the other people around me seem to. And after, or rather, as we got through kind of the end of that session, he was like, I do not think you are a psychopath. But in kind of, work with him and then also watching a lot of my particularly female friends being diagnosed with ADHD, and then actually quite a catalytic point, a presentation from a wonderful advocate called Rory, I started realizing that a lot of these experiences were mirrored back to me. They were my experiences. And I hit up Rory after that presentation to me as the spokesperson for the Greens on mental health and kind of asked for some of those self-diagnostic tools that they were talking about and quietly started to piece this picture together for myself. And that led me to then feel a little bit concerned about how on paper, everything looks relatively successful. But obviously in my life I was witnessing the wheels kind of falling off. And I compiled all of this stuff and went to my GP and said, I think that maybe I need to go to a psychiatrist and go through this process because it just seems to be the only thing that kind of makes sense. And I was terrified that I wouldn't be taken seriously or understood, but thankfully I was. And as Tory's just alluded to, with the privilege that I have in this position, still experienced a number of those barriers. And I just also here wanted to shout out that through that process and that diagnosis, I've come to know and love the likes of Suzanne and Darren from ADHD NZ, and over the past few years we've been working on Hui like this in Parliament to move forward on ADHD diagnosis and treatment, and we've had some really solid outcomes there and continue to advocate to ministers to make things easier and more affordable for all of us. As Ingrid has just said, at the end of the day, all of us have different brains. And I think with neurodiversity, we have a tendency to talk about it or narrativize it in a binary. We tend to think or talk about it as a superpower or as this incredibly debilitating or disabling thing. And I think the reality of those of us with lived experience in this room would say is that it's kind of both in different circumstances. So the question in front of us today is, how do we go about making sure that more often than not, it is that superpower? How do we go about making sure that we have an education system that gets the best out of all of us? And if I can just flip things on its head here, I'd like to ask you a question that I asked at a conference just last week. Who here is excited about the future? Okay, that's about half of you. It's a pretty depressing state of affairs, guys. I think this is where it's really important for us to recognise that if we are coming at the issues that all of us are facing from a place of defensiveness and from a place of exhaustion and fatigue and not expecting that things are going to get better, unfortunately, more likely than not, they are not going to get better. The way that we leapfrog that is that we work together and we build a cohesive and a coherent and a creative and an exciting solution that all of us can unify and organise behind to make a reality. So we are the change that all of us have been waiting for. You definitely don't need any more politicians talking to you. Thank you very much.